Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zinier Field Talk and Tacos. In this webinar summer series, you join us for an insightful discussion as we uncover practical solutions and strategies to accelerate revenue velocity and cultivate long-lasting customer relationships. My name is Rahul Hingle. I'm the Vice President of Growth and Strategy here at Zinier. Today, I'm sitting here with Doug McKellen, who's the Zinier Vice President of Sales for Europe, to discuss the topic today for discussion is how to uncover the power of a user-friendly UI for field service management. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce my colleague. So Doug is based out of UK and brings with him a lot of expertise in sales management, in cloud and SaaS solutions, general management, field service, business development, telecommunications, cable, broadcast, early stage companies, and high-tech companies, which make him a very sought-after expert in this field. He's known for inspiring audience with his belief in the power of collaboration and his genuine care for the welfare of his colleagues. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Rahul. It's good to be here.
And thanks so much for taking out the time today. I know it's afternoon for you.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my time than talk to you and whoever else is on the call. So,
excellent. So, Doug, let me just jump into our key topic, right? What, in your mind, let's start with the first principles. So what are the key principles of design thinking that can impact field service management?
I've got a few that I know of that are actually design thinking concepts, and I'll go over those. I just wanted to start out by sort of giving a little bit of a kind of a reflection on mobile technology and field service management. It's having been in the industry for a while now. I won't say how long because people will judge me, but there we go. But the focus in the last 2 decades, let's say, in field service has always been on back office efficiencies primarily. I mean, field mobility was definitely part of the overall solution, but the emphasis was on how you could squeeze more productivity, how you could route people more efficiently, and basically make the operation run more productively, which is a great aspiration. But somehow in those years, there was less emphasis on looking after the mobile workers. So how to serve them the best, really. And when you think about it, that's where the majority of the workers are that are actually getting the benefit from the tool done right. So it is really it's an important topic. Walking into this. In design thinking, there are a few things to think about. I guess actually 5 different areas. There's 5 steps, let's say, that we would follow in the way we design for solving the problems of the field worker. The first one is really to try to empathize. So there's research that we do into the needs of the user. It's basically walking in their shoes as much as you can. So thinking about field service, there's some organizations, particularly, let's say, telco and utilities, where there are long tenured engineers, and at this stage of the process, really, it's to try to gain their trust, to try to do things with them that I'll get onto in a second, but become involved in the organization, but involve them in being able to give feedback about what their real needs are. And because actually, their attrition, there's attrition, and they walk out the door, and then the knowledge goes out the door with them, and they have a lot of experience that you want to tap into. So the first bit is, empathize, get into your basically the heads of the people that are in the field.
Right.
The next stage is define. So basically, define, it states your users' needs and problems. So it's, again, we're taking the user perspective here, but you have to be careful at this stage not to just restate organizational KPIs and quantitative targets. This is not about that. This is more about taking a user-centered approach. So focusing on what the actual problem is, maybe, or the need, rather than saying we need to be 10% more productive, let's say. So an example might be a common problem you hear from engineers is they might say the last time that we tried automated routing, we would cross another engineer who was doing a job in the same area, and it really gets their hackles up. They really don't understand how they could both be in the same place if this engine is intelligent and everything. And that sometimes happens as a consequence of SLAs and availability of engineers, et cetera. But the problem actually is more about transparency, maybe, let's say, and without designing the solution. Are there ways to be able to provide them? So that's kind of trying to define their real needs and problems. Then the next stage is it's called ideate. I don't know if that's an American word or made up word, but what it means is that you then start to create ideas around this. So you challenge the assumptions. You start to think about ideas that will help solve the problems. So this is where you start getting into creating things. It's easy to get trapped here in conventional thinking. So especially where there are existing design paradigms in mobile, so because it's been around for a few decades. And so the user interfaces usually have similar info, but this is really where you start to challenge the conventional wisdom of how you're doing things and start to brainstorm new ideas. And then you prototype those ideas. That's the fourth stage. You start to create solution. And the beauty of in this stage, I guess the beauty of modern technology, like we have at Zinier, for instance, is that we've got a no-code, low-code platform. So we're able to actually build prototypes quickly, but you don't have to have that. You can use tools, other tools out there where you can do mock-ups, screenshots. You can simulate how something might look before you actually have to put any development work into it. So those are good tools now, make it easier to do this prototyping stage, and you can share it with the users and get feedback. And then the last stage is about testing the solution out. So trying and testing in kind of like a continuous process. You haven't actually implemented it yet, but here's where you take the feedback of this design process and then start testing it with the users. We have a saying in Zinier, the journey only begins when you go live. And what we mean by that is that you never really know something solves a problem until you actually start using it, and in anger, really. So all the time it takes to build stuff, the problem changes over time. So this is a stage where you can kind of be more fluid, and it's not a linear goal. It's something that kind of is a continuous process, because your system or your business will keep changing, and so your systems need to take that into account. So those are the 5 stages, I believe.
Oh, wow. I must say I love your framework. So to summarize the 5 points, it's empathize, and tell me if I'm saying it wrong, right? Empathize, is it the second one is define?
Yes.
Third is ideate.
Yes.
Fourth is prototype, and fifth one is test.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Test out your theory, test out everything, right? And what I really actually love about your framework is that you have not only considered a customer-centric approach, but also the approach for a lot of focus is on your field workers, right? You have taken the frontline workers, assumed what it would be to ensure that there is a better adoption of the technology with them, right? Because ultimately they are the biggest users of your tech.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's why, I mean, you can involve managers in what they think should happen, but then actually it's not until you talk to the actual user of the technology or the person who would benefit the most from it that you actually learn, what needs to actually be built into the tool.
Right. So if I were to jump back into your second and third stage, which is define and ideate stage, right? Mm-hmm. How do you work with your customers to better understand their needs, especially in terms of the user experience, UI?
Yeah, this is it's very, very important that you actually get involved with them and not so not get on a video conference. Sorry, I know we're doing that now, but actually do things that you get involved in their work during the day. So we do things like ride outs. Let's say there will be things like you can have tactical sessions, but ride-alongs, where you actually are sitting in the van going out and watching how work is done, hearing what happens between the jobs, even, there's a lot of good information that comes up during the day that isn't all about just performing a task or an installation. Sitting in the dispatch centers, or you can get ideas from other industries and that sort of thing, and and also maybe play back some ideas that you already have in things like roadmap sessions. But all of these are these are all good. I think what you have to be careful about, though, too, is that sometimes in doing trying to understand someone's needs, you have to be careful not to listen too closely. I'd say, it's Henry Ford had a quote that I think it's something like, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So you won't always get the answer, or it won't always lead you to the solution. You have to step back from the problem and think about it. But those are things that actively involve customers, and I've seen some creative things over the years that people have done, to get feedback from field engineers. There's sessions where you hear about complaints about how I'm, having to work overtime, or, something, the tool is driving, putting too many jobs in a day, or I'm having to drive, further than I think I have to drive. But there are other ways. One company I know, they had regular team meetings, let's say, in regional team meetings. They go out and meet with their engineers, and they just ask them to come up with 2 ideas that they thought would improve their work life. They didn't say improve the business. Crucially, they said, how can we make your work life better? Now, some of the ideas were, went in the bin, I'm sure, because they were a little bit too self-serving, maybe. But there were some good kernels in there that you could pull out that would make a difference. There's lots of different ways to do that, but those are the stages where you just want to gain trust with the end users and go from there.
Well, see, I think you had some very interesting observations, right? Getting customer feedback also depends on who you're talking to at the customer side, right? The requirements for user interface for some tech will differ based on the user personas that you are talking to. The field might have different requirements. They might want some ease of use. The dispatcher or back office might need productivity reports or different things, right? So
yeah.
It becomes a pretty big challenge to marry the requirements between 2 or 3 different user personas that will be using a tech.
Yeah, right? Definitely. Yeah.
So, continuing that train of thought, imagine you're designing a user-friendly interface for the field service, right? What are some of the best practices that you would consider are important for the field?
Right. Well, I'd say number one thing, keep in mind, that when you're dealing with engineers, the thing that engineers like the most is fixing things or installing things or doing things that require their engineering capabilities.
That's just like my dad, by the way. Yeah.
Sorry?
That's just like my dad, by the way.
Yeah, but I think all of us are that way, because you want to eliminate admin, as much non-value added tasks as much as possible. The 40% of a field technician's workday is wasted on non-value adding activities. That's a number that I think McKinsey came up with, and they like fixing things, not feeling informed. So you don't want to turn your field force into data cleansers. A lot of times that happens where there's data and you don't have the correct data, so you ask the field engineer to take on the responsibility to correct it, which is understood, but you want to do that in the easiest possible way, I guess. It's making up for inadequacies maybe in some legacy back office systems. But you want to, I'm going to try to, as much as possible to reduce admin, build in, if you have to, build in those processes in mobile apps, and and allow, it to be a very simple click-through process. Let's say, it's sometimes regulatory, so you have to make sure that things are filled in. But keep it simple. Keep it simple. The other thing about this, and this is a big topic here, but is to eliminate administration. The other thing you have to think about too is its usability, of course, but we've even had cases where we've worked with companies where the mobile workers, the literacy levels might not have been as high, maybe so or they might not have been able to read even. And so we designed a mobile app where it just had large buttons that would, basically have a picture of what they were doing, and they could click through without having to, answer a lot of questions and things like that. They could kind of progress with their job. They knew what they had to do. It was very literal, let's say, and it made the job easier. So these are, obviously, depends on the region and things like that. But these are things that you have to keep in mind. You just want to do something that actually helps you build compliance as a non-functional consideration. But how do I build adoption of the mobile app, and therefore there's more compliance, so that you do get information flowing back in that's correct, and people that are using it actually want to use it. We have in Zinier, we have a low-code, it's a no-code mobile task builder. So it's something where you can deploy literally in minutes, changes in the mobile tasks and the order that things are done and what needs to happen. You don't want to, you want to keep it very simple, but instead of waiting months for something, you can actually test it out quite quickly. And you just still have to apply design principles. You have to think about what you're doing and not just try new stuff all the time, which I suppose you could do if you have an environment that enables you to, but you still have to, do it in a smart way. So, not get carried away and, do things, be structured about it, let's say.
Oh, excellent. See, I think you brought up very good points here, right? Because it's really important to understand the user persona, right? What are the challenges that they're facing? You brought up like literacy rates. Also, a lot of times, their hands might be dirty. You need to make things easier for them rather than a bit more complicated, right? And you said for around roughly 40% of our technicians or frontline workers' time is spent in non-value added tasks, right? I think it's really important for companies to really define what are the value-added tasks, right? And have a framework around them. Does it add to additional revenue? Does it add to a reduction in cost? Is it a compliance thing? Is it a safety thing? You can have a framework that can define a lot of these things. And if a task doesn't add to any of your, maybe a 10-step framework, then you should try and eliminate that. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just, I think with all of the metrics and KPIs that we think about all the time with this, I think, winning hearts and minds is the most critical thing to do, because with that, then you have a workforce that's motivated. You're helping them actually do their job rather than requiring them to fill in forms and, like I say, be data cleansers and things like that, and it just leads to a more efficient workforce over time. People are interested in doing the right thing. Let them, enable them, empower.
So Doug, we have actually 3 questions. We'll try to answer them, right? This is excellent. The first question from our audience is, how do you navigate field-defined needs and management reluctant to change? This is a very consultative type of scenario.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I've seen this done before where things are actually given a qualitative score, let's say. It's almost like there's this kind of scoring process based upon what overall KPIs you want to achieve. So this is one way that I've seen this done, where is there something that you want to, how much impact does it actually have on what the end result would be? like I say. But you want to be careful in design thinking not to sort of be thinking of the KPI up front. You want to, you want to understand what the challenge is and maybe take it from a percentage into something that's more of a sort of a statement, want to reduce the amount of time, wasted time for completing or closing out a job or something like that, so then that would add to some kind of metric. So I think there can be a way of scoring, and I've seen that done before.
Okay, awesome. And another question from our audience was about how can an intuitive user interface enhance or help with the onboarding process for new technicians?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was something I had in the back of my mind, but I didn't mention. I think mobile tech today, and like I say, with the tools that we have, what's great about it is that depending on the type of work that you're doing, you can and the tenure of the engineer, so the skill level of the engineer, you can introduce tasks or steps that help guide them through work. So it might not be that your experienced engineers have any of this. They might just skip right to doing a job. But depending on the, let's say, skill level, or let's say kind of like an accreditation or scale that you give, someone who is a new starter might get a different set of tasks that they go through in order to make sure that they've followed the process correctly. And then as they start to learn, you can start to turn that off as well. So that's one way of doing it. Another is also providing tips along the way. So not just forms or clicks that you're making, but that there might be a step where actually there's more information given about what needs to happen. So that allows the new starter to look at it and sort of be able to kind of self-help, you could say, and work the job.
And I think your answer is not only relevant for onboarding new technicians. I think it is also relevant for ongoing training. The technology keeps changing every year. Consider telecom, 5G installations, consider the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The tech keeps changing, and so I think it is very relevant for ongoing training also.
Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be new regulations that come out, but nobody sits and memorizes these and reads books over the weekends. So you understand all the regulations or things that come up that you need to do. So absolutely, you can build quickly a new task in like I say, in minutes, literally, where if there needs to be a change in the work process or workflow, then you can make sure that people adhere to that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. I think it's time to conclude our webinar, and I really appreciate you taking out the time, and I really enjoyed this talk.
My pleasure, and thanks to everybody who joined us as well.
Thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to our conversation. We hope you found it helpful. Next time on Field Talk and Tacos, Doug and I will be speaking again on Tuesday, September 12th, on how to streamline admin work and empower real-time data collection for transformational change. I think this is a very relevant topic based on the audience question that we got today. Please share this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.